Welcome to SWP Ireland TV. In this week's episode, we're talking to Richard Boyd Barrett about the forests. We're having a review of May Day protests around the world, and Rory O'Neill is going to talk about the T8.
My name is Melissa Halpin. I'm here with Richard Boyd Barrett today to discuss the government's plans to sell off the harvesting rights to Coillte, to our national forests. So, Richard, what do you think is at stake with these government's plans to sell off the harvesting rights to Coillte?
Well, I think, first of all, the public, for the most part, until we started campaigning in recent weeks, weren't aware that this was happening. And I think there is an enormous amount at stake. We're talking about 1.2 million acres of public forest, which is a priceless cultural and public amenity. We have, I think, 18 million visitors to our forests every year. It's a huge tourist attraction. It's indissolubly linked to our cultural heritage, our literary heritage. So you can't overstate its value at that level, but also it's an enormous economic asset, and it's something that has enormous economic potential. Currently we have 12,000 people working in the area, but that's at a very low level of afforestation. If we had the European average level of afforestation, we could have tens of thousands more jobs in this area, but obviously that won't happen if it's privatized. Our forests will be asset stripped. It's almost certain that we will be selling the forest, if it happens, to pay off the debts of the banks. But it will be banks, either Swiss banks, Irish banks, or Chinese banks, that will end up owning the forests, and they won't give a damn about our cultural heritage, about the value of these forests to the wider society and economy. They'll just asset strip them. So it would be a disaster if these forests were sold, and we need to urgently mobilise public opposition to this plan.
And last week, Richard, you were involved in organising, amongst other events you've organised, you were involved in organising a big event down in Avondale to highlight this issue. What kind of impact do you think events like that can have?
I think they can have a huge impact, and I think it's important for people to understand that it is possible to resist this unjust juggernaut of austerity. And I think we demonstrated that with the campaign that's been happening over recent months, and which saw its sort of most significant expression, with 4,000 people going into the Wicklow Hills to protest against this disgraceful plan to sell our public forests. And within 2 days of that protest, we see signs that the government are crumbling. The Minister for Natural Resources has now said a sale that the government had committed to is now unlikely. The other government ministers are saying they're reconsidering. So you can see the government are very nervous. I wouldn't be complacent, however, but it is absolutely clear that the protests are having an impact. And the key lesson we have to draw from that is we need to escalate those protests until we get an absolutely clear commitment that the privatisation of our forests is not going to happen, and that they will be retained and developed for the people of this country, and to help us out of this economic mess that we're in. And I also think that example, we need to just insist really to people who are often feeling very demoralised at the moment, that people power can work, and that we are seeing it on this issue. And we can apply that to other issues of austerity and injustice that are being visited on the people of this country.
It's time for another good idea, bad idea. Good idea. Bad idea.
Doesn't get any better than this. This is your life, and it's ending 1 minute at a time. This isn't a seminar, this isn't a weekend retreat. Where you are now, you can't even imagine what the bottom will be like. Only after disaster can we be resurrected. It's only after you've lost everything that you're free to do anything. Nothing is static. Everything is evolving. apart. This is your life, this is your life, this is your life, this is your life. Doesn't get any better than this. This is your life, this is your life, this is your life, this is your life.
All right, everybody, listen up. First of all, I want to welcome all the leaders here.
My name's Sean, and I'm here with Rory O'Neill from the Socialist Workers' Party. Rory's been researching the G8. So, Rory, who are the G8?
Yeah, well, the G8 are basically the most powerful world leaders, representing the world's 8 biggest economies. So, people like Barack Obama, David Cameron, Angela Merkel, and obviously there's competition and rivalry between these huge economies and conflict between the G8 leaders on a number of issues. But every year they gather for a summit like the upcoming meeting in Fermanagh, where basically they discuss and coordinate policies that are in the interest of the global capitalist system and the people who run it. So it's been the G8 and other organisations like the IMF and the World Bank who have acted as pillars, if you like, for corporate globalisation and destructive neoliberal policies across the world, no matter the cost to society. So we're talking about driving down wages, attacking and privatising public services, and basically just squeezing as much profit out of workers as they can.
So why should we be protesting the G8?
Yeah, well, I think the G8 represents all the worst things about the capitalist system and the world that it's left us with today. I mean, since the start of the crisis, the role of the G8 leaders in every case has been to protect the interests of the rich and the wealthy at the expense of ordinary people, whether that be through the ruthless austerity policies imposed by Barack Obama, Merkel, Cameron, all across the world, to bank bailouts or recapitalisation as they call it. But all that is taking the debts and losses accrued by big business and private banks and placing them on the shoulders of ordinary working people. But as well as that, attending this summit in Fermanagh will be some of the world's most callous warlords today, and the most notorious of which will probably be the likes of Barack Obama, who has authorised this vicious drone war in the Middle East. A few weeks ago at the Boston bombings, people were horrified at how a second bomb could be used to target people, intentionally coming to the aid of the victims. But I mean, how many of those people know that's exactly the strategy being used in the US drone war in Pakistan and Yemen? It's called double tapping. They sometimes even target funerals as secondary targets. And we've all heard about Francois Hollande authorising French invasion of Mali to secure their interests there, and Vladimir Putin's march across Georgia and crimes in Chechnya. So the countries like Russia and the USA spend more on weaponry and war than they do on healthcare or education. So I think it's important for people to realise that and take a stand in solidarity with all the victims of war crimes across the world.